Gang, it is 12:51 or something. It is disheartening and old to give up on the day at 12:51. I have full autonomy over my limbs, if not my thoughts. And I think I should take advantage of the mental faculties I have as well as the resources currently available to me back in my home country, as it were. So, I was watching back a video of mine. At first, I was just listening to music, and as I was listening to Chapel Roan, and I was listening to her being in love with a girl, I felt deeply. And so I decided I would watch back my October video, which at the time of filming, I wasn't particularly affected by the composition or anything, but which I was affected by in hindsight. And I watched back that video and I looked at the various clips I'd put together of the glittering river under Kingsgate Bridge and how the trees moved on my 21st birthday. And all of it reminded me of a Mike Mills film, which is not surprising because Mike Mills really influences how I make these videos, how I express myself, and how I string both of those things together in video form or just in how I conduct myself with others in my interpersonal relationships. So, as I was watching back that video, I felt inspired, which is something that I always feel when I watch back videos of mine. And I think that what I want to do is something useful with my time, because my time is finite. It's finite not just in the course of my life, but also university. I'm only at university for 3 years, and the first year is gone, and so is some of the second year. And I have a choice to make. I am almost at the halfway point of my degree. Epiphany term, sometime in Epiphany term, will be the halfway point. Like half my degree will be done. And I feel like first year went by so fast, and I would like to be present for second year. It's really weird because I was living this life in Pakistan, and then I was picked up, and then suddenly I was thrown this other life in Britain. And over there, it just felt so not natural, but everything became sort of like clockwork. Going to the parties, wearing the dresses. And ever since coming back to Pakistan, especially a few days ago, I've been sort of sick of it. I've been sick of the dresses. I've been sick of how much precedence I have given boys and dresses. Not just how much it disgusts me that I've done that, but also how much it deeply bores me. Because I think there's other way of living, where when boys in clothes don't preoccupy you, it's a sensation and, aiming for something, it's desire, it's hope, it's my education. Regardless of whether education is a means on its own, or if it's a vehicle to achieve some other kind of thing. And I'm seeing that the situation I find myself in currently is not unlike that which I found myself in high school. So in high school, I really wanted to do well in A levels, and I wanted to do well not just because I really enjoyed my subject and I wanted to do well in them, for pride, for fun, all of it. And then I wanted those grades because I thought that if I could get those grades, I would be able to sail on to university, which is what happened. And something really cool happened at Durham. There was this journalist who came to give a talk, and I always really benefit from going to these debate union addresses. It's professionals, it's people who are in the media spotlight in some kind of way, however micro that spotlight is, and even if they're the ones shining that torch upon themselves. I find these addresses very useful and very inspirational. Now, this journalist guy was especially inspirational. Firstly, because I didn't want to be like him. He was a little bit pompous. And secondly, because he was a journalist, he was kind of providing this like run through about how you can be a journalist. And as he was doing this, he pointed out that a lot of the greatest journalism options, the greatest journalists in Britain, were the ones who graduated from Cambridge, Oxford, and Durham. And he said he really does include Durham in this category. And I kind of forget that Durham is a highly rated institution, that it's prestigious even. Perhaps it's not like Harvard level difficult to get into, and so these students who occupy it aren't half as eccentric and specialized. But it's a great place to study. And I feel like that part, the idea that Durham is a place to study and that my main motivation there is almost like a job, my job there, when I'm sort of being subsidized to do what the investment that's gone into this financially, a lot of it, yeah, it's about experiences and growing up. The major thing is studying, which I haven't been doing at all. Now, I have a few days left, and I feel like a few days before I go back to university. And as I have these few days left, I just want to talk about two things. Firstly, as I'm realizing that I don't know if it's prudent to make boys enclose such a big space in my life, that's the negative, that's the minus. I don't want these things. The positive, what I do want to add to my life is studying. Because doing that studying, I think, alongside, of course, upgrading other aspects of my life, but mainly the work, doing the work, is that I think it'll add something to my life, and I think it'll restore a lot of what I've been lacking, and I think it'll make me feel a lot more confident, and I think I will get a lot of good out of it. And I'm aware of these things almost like from a distance, but I feel like when I start doing it and I'm really there and I'm living there in this life consistently, even more good will emerge of it. Good that perhaps I haven't even perceived yet. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, what was the second thing? The second thing that comes to mind is that I have a choice here. You know, normally what I do in this circumstance is, well, originally it was to kind of be terrified. That's what happened when the Cambridge offer came. I was terrified. I was out of my mind scared. The second time I got the offer, I was a little less scared. After that, when I had to do my retake for Russian, I was a little bit less scared. And when I say scared, perhaps what I don't mean is that there was a lack of despair. I just mean there was a lack of like debilitating fear. And perhaps that fear was less debilitating because I was dealing with it properly. So perhaps impulse every time was being very frightened. Nothing can compare to that Cambridge frightening, like frightenment, fright. But I do think that that impulse was the same every other time after that, perhaps. And I think that what I did was I did work, and I really pushed myself to do work. And I'm not saying it was perfect, but my reaction was a little bit better every time. And I think that the reaction I want to do right now is have a very cool girl reaction. I had this best friend when I was younger, Haya, and she was cruel, and she was brilliant. And with Haya, she had this way of just getting away with everything. She got away with being cruel. She got away with being arrogant. She got away with different kinds of cowardice and recklessness. And she really prided herself on another thing she got away with, which was getting good grades without really studying. Now, eventually, Haya's report card wasn't the best. And when we reconnected all those years later, the question I asked her was, what grade did you end up getting? And that was important for me as an update, because more than what romantic relationships she'd found herself entangled in, I wanted to know if she'd actually done a good job or not. And she hadn't done the best job. But one thing I really liked about Haya was how nifty she was and how innovative and creative. Even today, when I'm reading a book, I will find myself sort of like disengaged and feeling a bit bored. But I will imagine I'm Haya sometimes. I'm reading these books. I imagine I'm Haya and how she would like really scrunch up her eyes and she'd be really absorbed in a book and she'd be absent-mindedly playing with her lips as she read from page to page. And because she had no real access to electronics, she would be completely absorbed in a book. And that is like, it's really like aspirational. And yeah, I feel like she could do a bunch of things like this, like writing and reading stuff. Sometimes I felt like I was a complete imposter I was pretending at, that she felt she got a real joy out of it that I didn't. And I think that the books I read and my approach and a lot of it was more mature than hers, but she also got a real kick out of things that I wished I liked. I wished I liked tomboy things. I wished I liked, real active bravery. But at the time, those things didn't really engage me, and I tried to pretend at them even if I didn't feel them. When I say bravery, of course, and Haya's definition was always complete and utter, recklessness. Because she was always playing a character, it felt like, rather than being a person. But the reason I bring up Haya is because when she'd have a few days left before an exam, I think she'd just make the most of it. And I don't want to be a wimp about it. I want to be able to look at these last few days and just do something with them. Because I was thinking actually, like, it just depressed me that, oh, my whole first year was wasted. I didn't really go to many lectures. And now, Michaelmas term has gone by. I didn't go to a lot of lectures. Yes, an improvement. I did go to some, and I was doing more stuff, I guess. But I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And I know this is a fact. I didn't do as much as I could have. And I had planned that in this break, when I come back to Pakistan, I would just make up for all that lost time and I would listen to all my lectures again. I didn't do this, and now that I have deadlines and stuff, I won't be able to do this. And that kind of depressed me until I sort of reframed it. I'm still a little bit depressed by this, but all I can do is better next time, perhaps. But one thing that helped me reframe this was thinking, like, how could I romanticize this? And I was thinking, some really interesting people are just so interesting that they don't have to bother with, like, going to classes or stuff like that. They're just so glamorous and interesting that they just don't fall in line like squares. And thinking of myself as a non-square was a great way to look at it, because by not studying, I felt a little bit like a square, because a lot of the popular people who go to, like, who go clubbing very often, very boring, sociable, public slop kind of individuals. I'm jealous. Not really. Just like the common people, they don't study. So it felt like I was being a bit of a square by not studying. But now I'm thinking about it, and I think maybe I was being very esoteric and cool by not studying because I was so engaged with other things. And perhaps what I can do now is just kind of be creative. And with the few days that I have left, I can just, like, work hard and see where it gets me, and look at it from this, like, cool girl perspective of someone who's just, like, adventurous and, like, I don't know, like someone who's just really intelligent, and that intelligence helps them float on by. When I think of intelligence, I have started to think of it in terms of, like, being book smart and doing really well in school, or having really great ideas. But I think intelligence can also translate in this kind of thing. Like, when you find yourself in this kind of situation where you procrastinated, how can your intelligence, like your mind, really carry you through by, like, working smart rather than working hard? So before I go back to university, I want to really work on the essays that I have left. Today is January 5th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's January 5th. And I didn't apply for some role. Perhaps I will apply for style editor, and I will respond to emails. But in terms of work, that's what I want to start. I want to spend this last week before I return to university just, like, doing the other things I didn't want to do. Because I can imagine talking to Haya on the phone and having some degree of perspective about this. Like, instead of feeling like a wimp and feeling like a loser and feeling so fatalistic and, oh, I never have my back and all that, I think perhaps what I could do is inject some humor into the situation and some humility and see that I'm a young person. And I'm as young as I was when I was 12. And look at it from that perspective. Right now I'm sitting here and there's this, like, cognizance that, no, I'm a woman, I'm 21 years old. That's not, like, a small age. I'm going to turn 22 this year. And that's, like, very close to 30. And I'm thinking that people who are my age have sex. People who are my age sometimes get married. People who are my age travel to countries on their own. And doing these things is not considered impressive because 21. In fact, you're expected to have done these things in Britain if you are 21 years old. And I feel like what I want to do is just look at this situation as if, like, it's totally fine, because it is totally fine. And I feel like if Haya had been a better friend, or perhaps just the way I looked at Haya when she would mess up, she would just really, like, be a hero about it and swoop in, and she'd kind of just be like, lol, yeah, I just kind of procrastinated and slept, and then in the end I kind of got my act together. I think I've become so preoccupied with having this linear narrative, having a narrative, having all of this like, be a story of progress, that it feels so debilitating that I don't get any progress done. I don't make any progress. Like, for instance, I wanted to start this diary. This is a diary that my mother gave me. I wanted to start a journal, and this is such a beautiful journal. It was bought for her by my grandparents, and she kept it like very symbolic with her for a really long time because it meant so much to her. Look how beautiful it is. It's so old timey, and it's not like it's a Facebook bound. Like it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. Frida Kahlo, it's perfect. So I wanted to write in this diary, but because my desk was cluttered, I decided no, I don't want to. Like I want to make sure this beautiful diary goes on a beautiful desk and I'm all washed and clean. And then I thought about it again. And I realized writing a diary is opening up a dialogue with yourself. It is like me talking to someone that I'm dating, which is something that is lovely and I should never deprive myself of. Like, ideally, in a relationship with someone where you're sustainably involved and it's for the long run, you will have a conversation with them when you're not looking your best, when you're not all dolled up. Perhaps you'll have a conversation in your Sunday morning bed. And as you have this conversation, your looks cease to matter because a friendship has developed, or an affection, or something. Or maybe just because you deserve to communicate with someone without looking your best. And I thought I didn't want to interrupt my dialogue with myself because my handwriting's not good enough, or the situation and circumstances are not good enough. Like, what's that thing? Is it a Nirvana thing or a Bible thing? Like, come as you are. I really like that. Perhaps I should just come as I am to this diary and come as I am to this way of life instead of waiting for these like conditions or dominoes to fall into place. And these dominoes, sometimes they're mentally constructed. Like, I want to have felt this way in order to do this, or I have to get done with these 3 tasks before I do the 4th task. And I just want to spend this last week just doing a good job. Currently, here are my goals, right? Firstly, I weigh 55 kilograms. Before I go back to university, I want to weigh myself and be 52 kilograms. This requires fasting. This requires a lot of eggs. It requires a lot of discipline, and it requires, or it would just be fun to just have a nice figure before I go. So a lot of hourglass workouts. That's my first goal, be 52 kilograms. My second goal is hope academically. By this I mean having done my essays, having an idea about deadlines, having some kind of way of approaching the next year. Like, academically, knowing what's going on, not feeling so frightened, confused, idiotic, and incompetent, actually knowing what's going on. And thirdly is journaling, developing like a dialogue with myself. Now, there are a bunch of other things also I have to do, and I think that if I do these 3 things, they will be a byproduct of my routine. For instance, I want to spend time with my dad. I want to fix my hair, and I want to have vitamins. But perhaps these things would just naturally happen if I get these 3 goals done. I've realized that I have certain habits I track all the time. I try to, like rush and stuff like this. And I rarely get this stuff done, if I'm being honest. I rarely do. But I think if I focus on these 3 things every day in whatever form that the goal matters, I think I'll be in a better position. I'll feel good. By that I mean, if you translate these long term, working on my physique, working on my degree, and working on my mind, body, and spirit through journaling. So that's what I want to do. I do want to incorporate, at the end of the day, like working on my Russian and reading the Quran, because these are important things to me. But I want to change how I'm doing things, and I want the next term to be great. I have a feeling the Epiphany term is going to be great. And I'd like to go to the dining hall wearing a crop top, having my stomach showing, because I think life is so short and I'm going to get old at some point, and I really want to see on my 21-year-old body what revealing outfits look like. What does it look like to dress provocatively, to dress sexy, to dress stylish, and to dress that way on this body at that time and feel good about myself. Academically, I want to know what does it look like when I push myself, when I work hard on my degree. How do I manage time? How do I engage with literature? What is my relationship with literature like? And then, who am I? What kind of person am I going to be? How do I feel about things? Like, I want to talk to myself and have intimacy with her, which will happen through journaling. And the penultimate thing will happen, of course, by studying. So those are my 3 goals, and this is my week of atonement, and I'd like you to be there and see how I do.